let's go further on. So
Yeah.
all of my life I have been a bit of a nut with the fishing and going all over the place. It's mostly in Scandinavia. And I made my master's in University of Jyväskylä. And after that, I have been working as a researcher or the assistant and like a project manager and so on. And now I have been working in Metsähallitus since 2016. And I actually started with the project called Big Experiences from Northern Fishing Waters. But after that, I got my permanent work as a fisheries specialist. And I'm not sure that how well you know about the Metsähallitus, but Metsähallitus takes care of the state-owned waters and lands, and approximately 1/3 of the whole Finland is state-owned. So we have quite a big responsibility of the state-owned areas. And in Metsähallitus, we have two business units, which are Metsähallitus Forestry and then Property Development. But my unit is Wildlife Services Finland, which is part of the Parks and Wildlife Services, and my unit mostly takes care and manage fishing and hunting in the state-owned lands. And now when I'm talking about fishing, so I made a print screen from our magazine called Tuikki, where you can see the fishing destinations in Finland, and more or less most of the places are in the northern Finland or in the eastern Finland or northern Karelia. And Finland is a country of the thousands lakes and rivers, but we have thought a lot and think a lot of these things that why we still have such a poor situation in sport fishing tourism. Like the Finnish people are enthusiastic with the fishing, but we don't have this kind of incoming from the foreign countries as fishing tourists. And more or less, fishing tourism in Finland is made by Finnish people. And do we have too many risks for the entrepreneurs or companies that they are not interested in developing products or making invests about their business? And like more or less all the places in Finland, if we are thinking fishing places, are working as open access sites. So there is fishing regulations, but still every people who wants to come for fishing, they can if there is enough licenses and so on. But do we need something more? Or then do we have poor fish populations, maybe too small fish? And what are the main reasons why sport fishing tourists usually choose destination where to go? We ask that, is it accommodation, or is it the traveling time, or is it the services for the rest of the families? And what are the main reasons why sport fishing tourism industry hasn't started growing like all the other forms of tourism here in northern Finland? So there was a lot of questions about this issue, and we tried to solve those questions during the project. And then a couple of examples, like the fishing destination called Torniojoki, which is of course border river between Sweden and Finland. There is quite a good number of euros each year what fishing tourists left for the area, and the value is about a little bit more than 10 million euros per year. And then of course the river Teno, which is between the Norway and Finland, it is also very important. But as we know, at the moment there is a lot of problems problems with the salmon stocks and fishing, but then Luke made a estimation about the yearly value, which was about 4 million euros before this Pukkelax invasion and these other hard fishing regulations, what we have now seen. And both of these destinations are working as open access principles, but still, of course, fishing is regulated in several different ways. Like there is some time and catch size regulations where to fish or what kind of a fish you can fish. And these are, of course, quite a good rivers, but could it be done something differently? And we were thinking that we need to make a pilot to do something totally different. And during the project, we were talking with the entrepreneurs in Northern Finland, and we heard a lot of things and a lot of wishes also. And there is certain things that the entrepreneurs feel or felt unsecured, and they felt they had negative vibes, so they couldn't or wanted to invest and develop their own business. And probably the biggest risks was that they are afraid of losing fish resource by overfishing. If we are thinking the migratory fish which are migrating in the huge areas, so there is fishing which is influencing for the fish populations all over the seas and in the rivers, and so regulation is quite hard and or difficult. And also if we are thinking migratory fish, there is even the several nations which can take their own part by fishing for the salmon populations. And then one risk, what was quite surprising, that they feel that they can lose their places for guiding and guided fishing. So there was several examples so that customers were one time buying guiding services, but in the next year, these same customers arrived with their own friends and own boats. So the entrepreneurs lose their place where to guide. And then in certain areas, there might be also short-term regulations which is influencing of getting fishing licenses. So it is also a big problem if we are thinking that someone is developing its own business. And of course, there is a lot of this kind of invisible lines between the rivers and lakes. So there is different estate owners, and they might have different angles how to regulate fishing. So it is actually quite messy that you are doing your business right and you can take care of the fishing regulations. So more or less all of these problems were linked about the open access places, and the tourist fishing is in the same line with all fishing what need to or which needs fishing permissions. And then we try to find a solution. Okay, so we tried this kind of a solution called private lake, and this is a result from the project. And in the project, we had a task that we need to develop 5 specialty destinations for sport fishing travelers in Northern Finland that we can create incoming for sport fishing to entrepreneurs or companies. And this lake Koutusjärvi, which is now this private lake, was only which succeeded. So we had a lot of difficulties with to find goals together with other water owners, and entrepreneurs were thinking that okay, the risk is too big and they don't like to invest. And of course, as not always, but many time, if there is too many user groups at the one lake, it is very difficult to create the functional regulations to satisfy all stakeholders around the area. And this private lake is a place where we focus to get bigger fishes and into a certain lake. And the lake is almost totally owned by state. So the size is 214 hectares, but there is only a few hectares of private waters. And last decades, this lake was more or less open access site where all legal fishing methods were allowed. And fish were small because of overfishing, and also the shores were a little bit of littered. It wasn't a beautiful place. But we made a couple of surveys, and then there was a sign that only a couple of households were using this lake as their fishing water. So we were thinking that the criticism and conflicts might be tolerable because the size of the user are so small. And we knew that the lake would have a good potential for growing big fish, and also the landscape. It's very good and nice if you noticed it from the videos. And how we made sure that it is private. We create this kind of a system that can be used only by entrepreneurs who can pass our training. And our training takes like maybe 8 hours. And there we go through about the sustainable fishing and fishing rights in this certain lake and all the fishing regulations. And actually we have made these regulations together with the entrepreneurs. So everybody takes it very seriously that we need to do like this so the lake will be good also in the future. And these entrepreneurs, they have access to a calendar where they can make a reservation for the lake. And the one reservation lasts 12 to 24 hours. So during the midnight sun, the reservation section is 12 hours, and during the long night, it's 24 hours. And first year when we launched this, there was 2 entrepreneurs, and now there is 6 of them. And they are making their own products for the lake. We are just taking care about the fish stocks and also the monitoring of the lake. So we are offering this kind of blue economy service for the entrepreneurs. And all the other fishing is prohibited, like gill netting and angling, and well, only fishing which is allowed is fishing which has made by these companies or the entrepreneurs and their customers. So the total number is of fishing trips, it's still quite low if we are comparing it that the place would be the open access place. And this is the first fishing destination in Finland where all fishing is guided. And all fishing is also monitored by guides. We are collecting data from the guides, and they are giving us good data that how many hours they have been fishing with how many rods and what kind of catch they have got. And for the customers, all fishing is private. So there is never that kind of a situation that there would be 2 groups at the same time. So this reservation and the calendar system will make it proof that the fishing for the customers is private. And I think that the private fishing is one of the most expensive thing all over the world. And if the lake is empty, guides can be fishing and learning the lake. And they do it simply by sending email to me. And the most important for the guiding is the knowledge of the area. And in this case, it is this certain lake. And we haven't built any kind of outdooring infrastructure. Only infra is biological infra. And here you can see the print screen from the one entrepreneur's web pages. So the price for the 6 hours for 1 to 2 persons is a little bit more than 1,000 euros per trip. So the value is very good, and fishing is very high quality. And then my final slide is that by developing fishing tourism in Finland, we would have a chance to be one of the top destinations in the whole world. Regional benefits would be tens of millions of euros per year, mostly in the rural areas, which would be very, very important. And most important, second important, third important resource is strong fish populations, where there will be uncommon number of big predatory fishes. More or less, fishing travelers are chasing experiences, not fish protein. And developing these top destinations, it will take time. Without ecological infra, fishing tourism won't develop as we would like to. And most of the fish populations are correlating strongly if we are regulating strongly. Of course, not always, but most of the fish populations do. And developing fishing tourism, it is a wide entirety. It needs to have long-term resources for developing, monitoring, and also for reacting if we can see that something is happening and we need to react. And one main thing is that if you need to have taking out something from someone, you need to be ready to compensate. And for example, this lake, because we stopped the fishing which has been there ongoing for decades, we started to stock whitefish lakes around this place. So we made compensatory actions to another lakes when we stopped this long-term fishing in this certain lake.
Thank you very much for the invitation. I'm Kerstin Eriksson. I work at Sweden Food Arena as an innovation leader. And we at the Arena, we see the Swedish food sector as an uncut diamond with the potential to become the new innovative growth engine of the 2020s. But for that to be true, we need long-term and significantly increased investments in innovation. Sweden is an innovation nation. We have 100 years of successful collaboration between the state and the industry, like the steel forestry and car industry. And they built the wealth in Sweden, and innovation is directly associated to the building of creation of wealth. So we are good at innovation in Sweden. We are topping the Bloomberg ranking in Europe. But it's not true for food. So for the food industry, we are coming actually more modest. We are at 14th place of the ranking of innovation. And we want to change that. We want to become 3rd place in 10 years. And we need to learn from the great innovators in Sweden to be able to perform that. So how promising is blue food? We know that aquaculture is growing rapidly and play a greater role in providing a food source. And especially understanding that sustainable land will not feed 10 billion humans 2050. That means that blue food takes a greater part in providing the food source, especially as it has a modest climate footprint. That is why it's very important. And how is the economy looking in Sweden in blue food? So the contribution to the gross national product from only the primary production is about 10 billion, but we are expecting to see a tenfold increase here coming from companies on the West Coast showing very impressive growth. Here is the growth between 2013 to 17, and it's a growth of 60% from 60 companies on the West Coast. And they are reporting very positive prospects of the future, and they are prognosing a very dramatic growth. So this is promising. But Blue Food, they need still to invest in both innovation and research to reach this potential. We need to improve the fish feed. It needs not to be sourced from the sea, for example, and we need to work much more on the sustainability and work with the data concerning sustainability, because we want to capitalize on that value. But for consumers to trust us, we need to build databases that are transparent. We also need the food industry to become operational excellent. They need to use the technique like the automation and digitalization to be able to build the resilience, to reduce the waste as we need. And then comes very important areas of gastronomy and nutrition. There is barriers to eat the food that comes from the blue industry. There are algae that we're not used to eating, and we need to work on the gastronomy, like the terroir and meroir of this food. To move away, take away the barriers to the new food. We also need to work on nutrition, because we are claiming there are health effects of eating blue food, and we need to prove that empirically. And then comes the major point to make us become world class, and that is the collaboration. Not only between ourselves in the value chain, we also need to collaborate with other industries, very successful industry. And that is ongoing as we speak. We work with the best. And there, I want to mention the experience of regulation and legislation. That is crucial for blue food, because there is a conflict here. Because when you move the blue food on land, actually they are compared to traditional farms. And this is the conflict that we need to come by. We need to change this, so this type of economy can flourish. And then we need incentives for sustainability, because it is not actually the package that makes a difference in becoming sustainable. We work a lot on the packaging and how to remove from plastic. It's actually it is the energy and the transport. So we need to find potentially like incentives for fossil-free petrol, for example. So what do we need to do? We need to continue with the political input of finding, to see calls in harmony with the needs of the industry. We need expedient funding of calls. So we should respond to the industry's needs there. And also we need to show presence in the existing calls, because there are many that are actually applicable to the food industry. And the primary goal of the Sweden Food Arena is to, within a few years, we want to see a strategic innovation program, a SIP, for food. There is already SIPs out there. There are 17 of them, but they're nothing for food. And we want dedicated programs for food. There are many small companies in food sector. Most of them are around 10 people employed. And if they want to scale up, there is of course a great risk for the investment, and to secure that we need test and demo facilities to prove that they can upscale still with economy intact. And then the final point, I think that in Sweden we are too small to specialize in everything. We need to co-work with other countries near us, like we're in the Nordics. We need to figure out where we are best at certain things, and we should help each other to be even better. So this is an ongoing project to see where our, in Swedish we say spets, where we are the best, and where the excellence exists, and there we will turn to them when it is time. Sweden Food Arena, we do two things. We influence and we initiate. So we influence by understanding the need of the industry and communicate this to the politicians and the authorities, because we want to see calls in line with the industry's need. And we initiate by starting consortia with the absolute focus on the industry's need. So That sounds maybe like it should be, but it's not always like this. And this is a rather absolutely new way of working. So we group up, we group the people and figure out what is our problem, and we formulate that problem. We look for a researcher that can solve our problem, and then we look for the funding. That order, not the other way around. We start with our problem. That is a great difference, actually. So the arena is a unique place. It is the whole food sector. It is the primary production, the food industry, and the trade, the retail. And that is unique. There is nothing like it. And of course, so it is rather fantastic. And the two people you see here is Marie Gidlund that leads the arena, and it's me working with the innovation goals. And Marie also do the policy work and the strategic work. So we are a very small organization, but very fast moving. So this is the principle we work by. It is Michael Porter's value chain. So we are looking at all the food producers as a value chain. And we have the position to be able to do this because we have the whole value chain in front of us. We work with all the parts of the value chain. So we can coordinate and we can maximize resources. Let's say that we need to attend to gastronomy. Then we can as well activate many value chain because we all have that need to build value. So then we could actually maximize the effort. And it's also better for the value chains. They will also minimize their effort because we are many together. So it's very smart. And then we have our goals. We want to, in 10 years, we should be top 3 in innovation ranking. And we should have created 50,000 new jobs and found successes that has a turnover of 1 billion euros. And then we should also have increased our export to 50%. And this is because we have great investments in front of us. So we need to finance that. We are going to produce our own proteins, the meat analog. So it is great events ahead of us that need financing. And the colorful circles you see here, they are the missions. They are actually from our innovation agenda that is based on the interviews with the whole of our sector. And they are like 110 problems, if you say, or challenges that we want to solve. And I just want to go give an example of Blue Food connected to each of those missions. We're looking now at mission 1. We want to make the world's most attractive food and drink. And to be able to do that, we need to understand the customers, and we need actually to provide what they value. So we need to know them in depth to understand what to do, what to produce. So right now, we are working on developing courses for gastronomy because we need to know the terroir and terroir of our products. And we are also working on policy to see calls associated to gastronomy. And we are doing designing courses also on innovation because we need a culture change. We need to become learning. We need to try. We need to take risk. We need to assess risk and take care of our ideas. This is very important. Our innovation system needs also to be adjusted to our type of economy, the food sector. It needs to be adapted to the food sector, and we also need to attract talent and capital because we have great investments ahead and find new business models. So what we're doing right now, we are looking at the food industry, looking how innovative are they? And they are mostly small companies. And we found since they are cost leaders, they of course make very small incremental steps because they are risk adverse. And we also looked at the barriers, and it seems like the education level is a bit low. And also because of cost leadership, they have modest profit. And all those things actually inhibit to some extent the innovation intensity. And then it inhibits the innovation height, I mean. And in 6 months, you will see from the arena a proposal of a completely new innovation system. Very different, and if it's going to be accepted, it's going to change a lot of things. Mission 3 deals with the food and drinks for a healthier life. This is one of the most important factors for consumers, both health and sustainability. And then we all again need to understand what is driving the consumer to consumption, what is important to them, because we also need, we would like to see that they also select the healthy food, and the healthy food needs to be tasty. So again, gastronomy. But here we have worked on, we contributed to the formation of the Blue Food Center, and that is financed by Formas, and they are going to work for several years ahead now on health effects of blue food, and also looking at behavior and how that leads to the shift to blue food. Mission 4 is a great mission. It is a resource-efficient food sector, and it's great because it's well-funded. So we are actually applying to other strategic programs here that are not actually intended for food, but we don't care. We apply anyway. So, and here it deals with resilient bioefficiency. So we are looking at techniques here like automation, digitalization. These are areas that are important to fulfill, to reduce the waste, to minimize the environmental impact, and to create circularity, but also operational excellence that is needed. So what is happening here right now is our 2 consortia that we formed at Arena. That is a self-running and learning factory that could actually, independent of the incoming raw material that is variable because it's nature, still can make an expected product. This is very important to reduce waste. And also we are making an automation robot for e-trade, trying to be in line with time and do what is crucial for our sector. The last mission, and of course the most important one, is the climate neutral food production. That is 2045. We need to be net zero at this point. And this is a systemic question, of course. It's large, and but we need to come together. And Arena is the exact place where it can happen, because we are all here together. And now we are mobilizing and measuring what is affecting the climate. We need still to collect data and have some sort of consensus how to measure. But we need also develop food that has less impact on the environment. So that is, for example, blue food, because of its modest emissions of climate gases. So it is an excellent area to work in to fulfill all the missions. And just to wrap it up, so what can Arena do for blue food? We can guarantee that we have the industry context first in everything we do. It's all originating from this industrial challenge and opportunities, and it is also a unique place where we can have system perspective and we can maximize resources. We try to avoid replication. Also, it is future-proof because the consortia that we form, they are of height, otherwise we won't even get funded. And it is of height, new thinking, and utility. Nytta in Swedish. It's very important, utility. And also what we can do, we can offer a part of the journey and also to be able to influence, because we have very ambitious goals and we are creating wealth, and we invite you to be a part of it. And we see the blue food having a bright future. We believe that it can be profitable and sustainable, and we are inviting you all to join us. Thank you.
Yes. Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me to try to contribute to this seminar about blue economy. And what I will do is to look into some what I call crossover possibilities between industrial sectors that we have in the Nordic countries, and also crossover possibilities between the 3 countries that are participating in this. Because first of all, when you look at rural Arctic, it's mostly ocean, of course. When you see from this picture, where we actually turn the map upside down, we see very clear that it's mostly ocean. In SINTEF that I'm representing, we are working with all ocean-based industries, so to say. And that's, of course, the reason for that is that 70% of the export values to Norway come from ocean-based industries. And you know, mostly that from oil and gas exploration, of course. But you know, when time goes along and we are going to be carbon neutral about 2050 and so on, reaching all these targets, we are expecting that the oil and gas activity will decline, but we have ambition to keep up the percentage with a high export value coming from the ocean. So we have to develop other industries. And aquaculture is, of course, one main industry, but there are also others to come. For instance, the renewable energy production in the sea. So that is some background. We have also looked into whether there are crossover possibilities between sectors. And in this case, it's a report that we did in SINTEF a couple of years ago, where we looked into other possibilities for crossover activities between the ocean-based sectors. And we, of course, found that, well, of course it is. And we see also now that when the aquaculture industry is developing into a more exposed ocean-based production, they can use the knowledge developed from the oil and gas industry, for instance. So when we are going into the green shift now in Norway, in the ocean-based industries, that is one example that we need the engineering and knowledge in the oil and gas industry actually to develop the future aquaculture industry. And changing activities from land-based activities into ocean-based activities might give some good contributions to reach the climate, the targets set by the Paris Agreement, of course. Another report down to the left there was enabled by the Norwegian previous prime minister, where they set up an ocean panel, a global ocean panel, which is looking into the ocean-based activities. And we see here from this figure that the ocean-based activities actually is part of the solution when it comes to keep carbon neutrality. Actually, expanding the ocean-based industries, like you see in this figure here, we can reduce annual gas emissions by 21%, 21% of actually what is needed by 2050, we can reach by putting more activities into the oceans. And you see here that the dietary shift, for instance, people eating less beef, transferring into more fish, also taking care of the coastal marine ecosystems can contribute significantly to reduce the carbon footprint. So that is some background. But how can the Nordic countries as such contribute together here? And this is just a figure showing the bioresources we have available. There are, of course, blue and green bioresources, and they are not absolute in the way we can expand them by harvesting other species than we did before, for instance, of course, in a sustainable way, and also by cultivating new species. So from the bioresources we have available, there is a lot of focus now in Norway and also in EU and other parts of the world to utilize the bioresources to get a more bio-based industry, and then of course to have these products that come out of a bio-based industry as high as possible when it comes to value adding in this value pyramid. I'll come back to that. But of course, produce food from the ocean is probably the most important, the fastest growing market, and that is what I will discuss now. More food from the oceans. The laws of nature are in favor of some more food production from the sea. And if we look into this picture here, we see that of total bioproduction, there is 50% terrestrial and 50% marine bioresources. Actually, you just see 50% of the bioresources that are produced. But when it comes to human consumption, we see that it's the terrestrial part that actually gave us 90%, 98% of our calories, and just 2% from the ocean. On a protein basis, this would be 14 to 15% from the ocean, because fish is of course rich in proteins. We have some advantages that sometimes we think of them and sometimes we don't. We're moving food production into sea. One first point is, of course, stupid one, you will say, it's the fact that there is enough water. When you produce food in the sea, there is enough water, because in some terrestrial sites there is a lack of water for plant production, and in some parts of the world they are actually fighting about the water resources. You can read book about the Nile, how they're fighting about the water coming down with the Nile, and so on. The second advantage is, of course, the Archimedes law. The fish swimming around in the water column is actually utilizing the buoyancy. It's easier to stay up, so to say. It doesn't spend much energy to stay on 4 feet like the warm-blooded animals. And when you slaughter a fish, you see that there's a high fillet yield, much more muscle per animal than what you get from beef, when you have to produce a lot of bones, etc., to keep this animal going. A third one is, of course, temperature. We, as human beings and as warm-blooded animals, we have to operate at 37 degrees, but in the sea, you synthesize protein at much lower temperatures like that. This picture at the bottom there is of krill in the harvested in the Antarctic. So moving food production from terrestrial areas into sea has great advantages. And you also see that when you look into the expansion of the protein industries around the world, you'll see that aquaculture, seafood there in the middle, actually has the highest growth, and it's expecting to have a highest growth also in the future. While you see the wild catch there, seafood is stabilized at around 90 million tons, and so on. So expansion of aquaculture is coming, but it's not easy, because there is a limiting factor, of course, when it comes to feed. We say in Norway, where we actually have great ambitions for our salmon production, we say that by 2050 we will be up to 5 million metric tons, but in that case we need 6 million tons of feed. And how are we going to get all those feed resources? Today, we are based upon the feed resources to the left there. There is a pelagic fish, there is marine restaurant materials, but most it's plant material when we feed the fish, soy protein and other plants. And there are so many possibilities. We have surveyed 33 different sources. I think I touched this figure also, telling that the expansion of protein production is mostly growing fastest in the aquaculture seafood industry. And I also mentioned that with the big ambition we have in Norway, producing 5 million metric tons of salmon, we need 6 million tons of feed. And how on earth are we going to get all that feed in a sustainable way? These are the raw materials we are relating on today, industrial to the left there with the pelagic fish, but mostly plant materials. And we have some possibilities here in the middle for scaling up, but there are also several other resources that are being explored. But if you're going to reach this 6 million tons feed target, we must start with industrial processes that really can contribute. So that is an issue here. So then I want to invite you to look at this figure here, because if we say there is a growing seafood market down to the right here, and that will be supplied by aquaculture, but also from wild fisheries, how can we improve the feed production? And there are a few possibilities. Of course, we can get more out of the sea by low trophic harvest and production, but we can also bioconvert terrestrial biomass into to protein, make it nutritionally available for the fish. And here we come to the possibility that the Nordic countries can contribute together, because I think in Sweden, Finland, you have much more terrestrial biomass than what we have in Norway, and you also have an industry. I don't have the total picture of that, but I know in Finland you have a very advanced biotech industry and doing fermentation of wood for instance, for yeast production. So here are possibilities for a joint Nordic project. And you see here the aquaculture industry is actually not what it used to be. This is what we call ocean farming, one of the huge cages that are being put out. Here is another setup with a more ship-like construction and so on. And we'll see more of this in the future. So the feed issue I'm addressing here is crucial for further growth. But there are also other aquaculture species than salmon, of course, and one of the most interesting one is, of course, seaweed production. I think Kerstin was touching this in her gastronomic description of what could be the future meals. But at least seaweed production is, on a global basis, the largest aquaculture species to be produced. It's more than 30 million metric tons actually being produced, and most of it is going for human consumption. So here maybe we can produce some more seaweed outside the Nordic coast, but maybe we need some help from Kerstin to make this gastronomic lucrative. Another topic I want to address is the fact that in the sea there are, of course, a genetic potential that we can extract biochemicals, but we don't have a pharmaceutical industry in Norway. We have a lot of knowledge about all these different marine ingredients, from bioprospecting, from the coral reef, from deep oceans, underwater volcanoes, low temperature, and so on, and also in the Arctic areas. We have characterized the different enzymes, antibiotics, and so on. But the next step to produce them in large scale, we need strong cooperation with pharmaceutical industry. For instance, like the pharmaceutical industry you have in Sweden. So this could be a joint Nordic program as well, because when you see here, the yearly discovered new natural product from marine organisms is growing fast. It's more than 1,500 products a year that are characterized. So there is a potential for new pharmaceutical products here that is not utilized as it should be today, at least from my opinion. Then, of course, the fishing vessels need renewable energy, because when you look at the picture here, a fishing vessel going out, spending fossil oil, it's too much energy spent for every energy unit we catch from the ocean. So we have to make the fisheries more sustainable. And of course, the main challenge is the energy consumption, the fuel in the wild fish industry is like the feed in the aquaculture industry, so to say. It takes up 60% of the carbon footprint. So be able to come up with some more renewable energy in the fishing, wild fish is crucial. And I know in Sweden, at least, and also maybe in Finland, you have good plants and actually are producing. Well, you're further into the battery production than what we are in Norway. So maybe here it could be something we could cooperate on also. So as a conclusion, I would say that in this triangle, there are crossover possibilities. It could be, for instance, to produce more feed, so the global population can get more marine proteins. I think that's a good issue. We could utilize the genetic potential in the oceans, the characteristics that is published in Norway together with the Swedish and also maybe the Finnish pharmaceutical industry has a potential. And finally, this topic I mentioned at the last, the renewable energy for fishing vessels. So from my point of view, we have a Nordic potential for contributing to more sustainable industrial development in the future that we haven't utilized up till now. Thank you.
Maybe I'll start with you, Kerstin. What is your viewpoint on where the potential is for cross-border collaboration in the Nordics?
But I agree with Karl that pharma could be a very good idea, but I also think about the alternative fossil sources, like the ethanol production that we have in Sweden. It's a very good, very strong technology in producing ethanol, alternative fuel, from actually the waste from food industries. That it might be something that could be interesting in other countries as well. And because the masses of carbohydrate waste is very high in industry. And I'm thinking also what one needs to do is actually to explore where the excellence is. The countries that are very successful in food innovation, for example, they have one thing in common: they know their excellence. And this is something I think we need to do as well in the Nordics. We need to figure out where are we really, really strong, and then as we address those questions, we face those very strong centers or universities, whatever they are, or companies, and to actually support them so they can be even stronger. This is my conclusion from the short time I've been here at Arena.
Thanks.
To be aware of excellence is very important. I don't know in Norway, maybe this is absolutely clear to you where you're really great. I mean, I can assume fishery and the refinement of fishing and to grow up the fishes, but is there something else, Karl, that you think about?
Well, I've just tried to pick out some examples, and I think ocean-based industries as such is a very strong point in Norway, of course. So I took a kind of overview, and I say, well, in Finland and also in Sweden, but maybe I thought of Finland there first. You're very strong in the pulp and paper industry and handling your large forest resources, and the same in Sweden. But from the old days when I cooperated with Finland, they also had some excellent biotech groups that actually can convert these wood resources, because we cannot eat them, and to have cows to convert cellulose is also quite unsustainable, also when it comes to the methane output of that.
Yes.
So that was one, and on the other hand, I know in Sweden there is a long industrial pharmaceutical tradition, which is we don't have in Norway. We had many years ago, but we sold out that industry, and we don't have pharmaceutical industry at all now. Of course, that was a discussion during the pandemic. From security point of view, maybe we should have such an industry, but I don't think we will build such an industry because that will be too expensive. So
Yes.
there are some, this is on some sort of a macro level, so to say, but there are, of course, projects within these topics that we could explore. And I think your presentation, where you are more into actually the product development or the gastronomic part of this, or how can we actually make, for instance, algae eatable to people?
Yeah.
It's we are not used to that. In Asia, they eat everything.
But the great masses eat them.
So we are not there yet. So
No.
There's a lot to do there.
Yeah. No, I mean, the gastronomy is just one part of what we're doing. We are working very much with the technique like automation and excellent industry. That is also our focus. But I'm also thinking about another thing, like my background is genetics.
Yeah.
So I worked a lot with genotyping, and I'm thinking about also the potential crops that we're going to grow. I know in Norway and in Finland, you have a great number of variants, and that could be also very important for the future for the candidate that we're going to grow in a variable climate. That is also something we could incorporate possibly within.
Yes.
Yeah, because crops is also important for the fish industry.
Yes,
because
sure.
the cereal are possibly feed for the fish.
Yes, it is.
Before we move forward with this, I would just ask Markku to comment on this. We're into the discussion now on cross-border collaboration and where is the potential. And I would just like to give you the opportunity to comment. Where do you, because now it's a lot about food, and of course the connection with fish tourism there is a connection to food, but also it's interesting to kind of expand from this topic. So do you have any comments on where the potential in cross-border collaboration could be in this topic?
Well, actually, we have thought that can we find partners from the Sweden or from the Norway if we could think this kind of Scandinavian big hit fishing tourism products, for example. And more or less, my contacts are not so strong, but there is a couple of good entrepreneurs which has very good own networks that they can make this kind of a planning together across the borders. But well, if I'm thinking Finland, I assume that more or less Finnish fishermen go over the borders to Norway and Sweden for fishing because the situation is usually better there and the fishing populations are stronger and the amount of big fishes is better if we across the border. But I don't know. Well, actually, I was hearing Karl very sharply, and I have actually a question for Karl. That is there already cross-border actions if we are thinking salmon farming and about the feed of the salmons, or does Norwegians have the how to say it lines in their own hands? So are you producing by yourself the feed for this farmed salmon? or how is it going?
Yes.
If we are thinking if we are thinking that you need to have a bigger number of feed, and the one opportunity is this normal agriculture. So how big network do you already have?
Yes, I must admit that it's quite limited, and the most of the feed that is given to the salmon today is imported. It is of course the plant materials, soya protein from Brazil, and we are not satisfied with the sustainability of that. The land transportation and also the rainforest destruction that might happen. So that's one thing. And the other part, the pelagic species, we also import most of that fish meal and oil from South America, harvesting anchoveta and those species. Those have been quite stable. So we have a double challenge, so to say. One, we have to expand the feed amounts available, and we have to be able to produce the feed in a sustainable way in Norway. So it's a tremendous challenge, and therefore I'm addressing this in this Nordic forum, that it could be something that we could cooperate on. We have projects going on in Norway also when it comes to the conversion of wood into yeast and things like that. But in Sweden and Finland, you have a much stronger industrial tradition in this field.
Mm.
Yes, so I think this feed production could be a future market for you, because the salmon market seems to be unlimited. Yes.
Yeah.
But of course, we have to think of the way we do aquaculture, of course, because salmon need feed, but there are species that at the lower level here that that are not predators, and they don't need the same protein feed. Okay, so we also think of that. But there is a question here in the chat.
Yeah.
Whether in Sweden, I think it's a question from you, Gabriel. In Sweden, legislation and knowledge is part of the problem. We still don't have a developed industry in aquaculture and feed production. And I would say in Norway, the aquaculture industry has for at least 30 years been very central in the Norwegian industrial strategy. So it's no discussion about whether we should expand this or not. But there are, of course, challenges, environmental challenges. We have sea lice and all these problems that we are facing. But there is also, I think, a cultural strength in the way that in Norway we can see an aquaculture plant in the fjord. We can see a windmill on an island and so on, and say, well, this is how time is growing. But when you go down in Europe, you have this not in my backyard effect that is actually in opposition to all this. And I don't know whether that is in Sweden and Finland when it comes to aquaculture, but I have doubt that you will have aquaculture production outside Stockholm in this nice island area there. Yeah.
We try to promote the on-land aquaculture, like the farmers could have some sort of second business actually to secure their profitability. This is an aim we have, and we have several consortia about to look into the circularity of the on-land aquaculture, to make sure there are very large tech industries interested in this as well. But it's true, we have rules and regulations that are inhibiting this business. So it's
yes.
Sorry.
But Markku, is there a inland aquaculture industry in Sweden? I think producing Arctic char and trout and so on, isn't it?
Well, if I can answer from the Finland, so our
Sorry.
yeah, our main product is a rainbow trout.
Yeah.
And we have, of course, these inland farms, but more or less now our state and actually my company Metsähallitus, which takes care of these offshore areas. We call them as a public waters in the Sealand, in the Baltic area. Okay. They are actually now finding out the places where to farm like big units, like 2 million or 3 million kilos per year. And now they are trying to seek those places, and they are making those as, how to say it, ready products for the fish farmers. So they are making all the planning and places ready, and then they are offering these for the farm companies. Okay. So they are trying to increase the total number of the farmed fish in the offshore areas. But of course, if we are talking offshore in the Baltic area, it is a bit different than in the Atlantic Ocean than you are doing. But still, the trend is going on. So they are also trying to avoid this backyard problem, to take those backyards or the farms out from the backyards. And of course, the eutrophication problems are smaller there where there is no islands, and the currents are better than the next to shore. So they are doing it all the time. And of course, now they are trying also these inland farms which are not using water. So these circulation systems.
Yes.
And I think that the Luke has quite a big projects going on with these big fish farm industrial halls that they are trying to solve these circulation system problems at the moment.
We have a hand here from Gabriel.
Yes, thank you very much. Very interesting to listen to you, Karl, and Markku as well. I would just like to answer that when concerning the Swedish situation, we also have been looking into the possibility of using the hydroelectric power dams to use them more efficiently. Right now, they are just deserted aqua areas with no production, but that could be something for the future. But there is still not enough science on that area, how to actually create a beneficial environment for fish. Also because, I mean, the Baltic Sea is so highly polluted and well, yes, such a big environmental problem.
Thanks, Gabriel. We have another question here from Marit. It's for you, Karl, but I'm sure you
yes,
can comment, both Markku and Kerstin, if you have any comments.
Yes, it's about renewable energy production. And I will say that these days we are focusing mainly upon wind, ocean wind energy. The energy we can get from the tides and the currents. I think we have been exploring that for many years, but it's very limited potential we have got out of that. So ocean wind energy is actually a high investment area now. And for instance, Equinor, the large governmental oil company, they are going to invest, I think it was 300 billion NOx. That's quite a lot of money. It's in ocean wind production in the future now. So that is really coming very fast.
Thanks, Karl. I also noted you were talking about this "not in my backyard" issue, and I came to think about there's recently been a case here in some of our neighboring municipalities from here in Tromsø, where I'm sitting, where there's been some issues regarding regulating aquaculture in a coastal area where there is also some fishing tourism, and how do there's obviously some issues arising when different sectors and businesses are navigating in the same both locality and using or utilizing the same kind of natural resources, because a lot of the Norwegian blue tourism, at least, is based in coastal areas with experiencing either fishing or bird watching and just enjoying the location, where there's also some, for instance, fisheries and or aquacultural businesses. So there is, it's not a like conflictless topic. So and you, Markku, was talking a bit about how you had taken different stakeholder groups into account in your project. And what is your experience on kind of having how do you mitigate or tackle these different interests between these different stakeholder groups? What is kind of the approach to tackle this in the future, where we are? There's a lot of different sectors navigating in the same localities.
Yeah, more or less you need to be open. So at the beginning, you just need to spread your plans and hear what are the answers and opinions about that. And if I'm thinking, well, in Finland, like I said, we have a lot of local fishermen, and more or less the best places has been on use for decades. And if we want to do changes about the fishing and the fishing regulation, easiest places are that kind of that there is no use. So, but still it is quite difficult if we are thinking the northern Lapland and the Same issues. Well, there is no any lakes or rivers where hasn't any cultural use. So there will be always some kind of a conflict if the state will say that, okay, now we are changing this and these things to make things look better, or we take the areas for different use what they have been. So yeah, we need discussion and we need to be open, and if there is places that we can use, for example, for sport fishing, we need to have ready to make this kind of a compensation acts to satisfy people around the places. And of course, every time if the project is I think that if it's small but it still influences for a lot of people, the easiest way might be that stop the project and go forward.
Yeah, I see.
And these fishing issues, they are more or less always, of course. Well, I think the culture is very important to take care.
Yes, and as an apropos to your answer, we see also Lena here commenting on the same topic for the Swedish area, or I guess it would apply to all of Sápmi, of course. But this is of course a topic that we have experienced in Norway that I know of, and I'm sure in both Sweden and Finland, that these issues are important to be aware of, and they are important. So I guess your punchline, Markku, would be transparency.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. But thank you. I see we're approaching lunchtime, so I would just like to finalize the discussion with a question going to all of you, and of course everyone is welcome to comment. We have been through both during the keynotes and the panel. We've seen some suggestions and some promising paths to where we should go in getting some cross-border collaboration up and running. But what needs to be done to start this, and what's the barriers to get this up and running? Because it looks promising, and there's some obvious paths to collaborate. So what do we do with this? Kerstin, you're nodding, so I will encourage you to.
One has to identify the most important subject to address. What if it is fish feed? Then we could simply just build up the energy and to explore this area, see what we can do together. But it might be something else as well, like it might be the meat analog. So what we are doing right now here in Sweden, we are trying to prioritize the whole innovation agenda. And so it is soon to be published, and I'm sure there will be subjects in common with both Finland and Norway. So of course we could reach out a hand and try to cooperate. I cannot imagine that it would be. I would look forward to that, because these are very big challenges, and that we need to be smart enough to work together, I think.
Yes. Karl?
Yes, I agree to that. I think the three countries here, we are facing the same global picture, so to say. We have some advantages, each and every one of us, and if we put them together, we really have even bigger advantages. So we could maybe point out some good projects, but I think before that maybe we should put some effort into making what I would call a joint Nordic industrial strategy, so to say, so we don't forget anything, but that we pick up what is there, and then we could pinpoint some of these interesting projects. There is a great potential for cooperation here. Yeah.
That's great. Markku, do you have any comments?
At the moment, no.
And we should really identify our talents. Where are we strong? Where do we excel? And help each other, I believe.
Okay, but that's a task for everyone then, I guess. But we will try to at least synthesize some of these the things that's come up during this discussion, and maybe provide some pointing forward in some of the material that we will produce after this event.